Senator Andy Kim of New Jersey, a former counterterrorism official at the Pentagon, now one of the sharpest voices in the Democratic caucus, sat down with Haywood Talcove, CEO of LexisNexis Risk Solutions, and Dylan Hetler-Gaudet from the Project on Government Oversight to examine what can only be described as a staggering failure to protect your tax dollars from fraud and foreign exploitation. And while this administration has been busy gutting inspectors general and dismantling the very agencies designed to catch this kind of abuse, Senator Kim is asking the question Washington refuses to answer. Why aren't we fighting the criminals instead of each other?
Do anything further?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I mean, look, what you just laid out there, Mr. Talco, I mean, it should piss off every single American. And this is absolutely atrocious, and it just... I'm just furious, honestly, Chairman. And I think that there is something here, as we've tried in other hearings too, where we can work in a bipartisan way to be able to address this. You know, my job today, I'm not trying to defend any single state. I'm just saying that we can't look at it just through that lens. I mean, Mr. Talcove, you were talking about this, saying the criminals are looking at this nationally. Is that right? I think that was your quote.
Yes, sir.
Then we need to make sure we're looking at this nationally too. Because it's not something that any single state is going to be able to handle on their own. Is that right, Mr. Talcove? Like, no single state in our country has the capacity on their own to be able to address this.
You don't see the connections when you're looking at it within a state. You have to look at it nationally to find the connections.
Yeah, and so, you know, I think just our best opportunity here going forward to really try to deliver for the American people, because this is outrageous and should not continue on. It's just not just the scale of the money, but what it's being used for and what it's going towards. And I say that as someone who used to work counterterrorism, you know, at the Pentagon before. Like, I can't stand this. But we need to make sure we're focusing in on the criminals and thinking through, you know, what you were saying about federal law enforcement and other efforts. So, look, you know, Mr. Chairman, again, I just think that there's an opportunity here for us to come up with a comprehensive set of a menu of actions that we can take and think through what is it that we can work with this administration on, what is it that we can work through Congress on, what is it that we can empower the states to be able to step up and to be able to handle on that front. And, you know, Mr. Hetler-Gaudet, I just wanted to just follow up with you because, you know, we were talking through this about just the challenges, for instance, on the data side. You know, I had seen, you know, different reports about, for instance, usaspending.gov, right? But it seems, from my appearance, wholly inadequate right now in terms of being able to really rise to the level of the detail. I mean, I think it's admirable we're trying to have that transparency, but would you agree that, you know, this is something, if we're really serious about this, need to make sure that we're taking the tools that we have, investing in them to have a greater level of detail and the fidelity to really be able to try to track? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I would just note that we're actually at a kind of an interesting moment right now. We're 20-year anniversary of the passage of the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act, which was the piece of legislation, bipartisan, co-led by Senator Tom Coburn and then Senator Barack Obama, by the way, that created usaspending.gov and really tried to begin the process of bringing federal funding and the tracking of federal funding into the 21st century. We have obviously not kept up. And as I mentioned in my opening testimony, we have a long ways to go to really reflect 21st century sort of technological capabilities when it comes to how we track, monitor, and assess federal spending. But it's, you know, it's something we can do. It's not hard. You know, the statute is there. We have the reforms. We have the fixes. We just need to do it.
Mr. Hetler-Gaudet, I just wanted to stick with you a little more. You know, Mr. Talcove was going through, you know, 4 different ideas here: front-end identity verification, recertification, third-party audits, federal law enforcement. Did I get that right? You know, just wanted to get your response. You know, if there's anything else that you want to add, any other things that this committee should be thinking about.
Yes, so all of the recommendations that Mr. Talcove laid out there sound perfectly reasonable to me. I would add to build a little bit on the USA spending issue. That is supposed to be the primary interface through which the American people can can trust but verify what is happening with their tax dollars. The problem is that USA spending right now is it's outdated and it doesn't require enough information to make it truly useful in the way that it needs to be. As a prime example of that, you know, we are required, each program is required to submit award descriptions, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's supposed to tell you what that federal award is, but right now there are no standards or no guidelines around what has to be contained in an award description. So if you go on USA Spending and you try to look up like what a program is, how much money is being spent, and you look in the award description field, you're often going to see a bunch of gobbledygook that makes no sense and doesn't give you any information. And that could be easily fixed by just saying to OMB, to agencies, hey, you have to provide meaningful information when you're entering in these award descriptions into USA Spending. So there are a ton of pretty low-hanging fruit fixes like that would really help as far as the sort of transparency and trying to actualize the fact that sunlight truly is the best disinfectant.
Yeah. No, look, thank you for that. I just want to end here just saying, we take all of this effort that we're doing right now, mindful of the fact that, we live in the time of the greatest amount of distrust in government in modern American history. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think a lot of what we heard today is a big part of that. Is the sense that we can't manage our money. In fact, that we're seeing us being taken advantage of by others. And I hope we can just, in a unified way, be able to say enough. Like, we're tired of this, and we need to have that end and work earnestly to be able to address it. What I worry, though, again, is if we're sniping at each other and continuing to point attacks at each other, especially politically, the only people that benefit from that are the criminals. They're the ones that are getting away with this as we're wrestling with each other and fighting each other. Whereas if we are seriously being targeted in such a direct and malicious way by actors, then we need to make sure we are unified in terms of being able to address that and be able to do this with a clear mind. Because again, I think restoring trust is so important right now. We think about just how many legitimate beneficiaries are being taken advantage of and not getting, how the taxpayer dollars are being diverted, and how all of this is just going to continue to make it harder for us to be able to push forward. So, Mr. Chair, again, I am grateful that we have an opportunity to shine a light on this. I know we will have some disagreements in terms of, some of the priorities and some of the words that we're using. But again, I am ready to be able to engage. I think many people on the Democratic side here in the Senate would be willing to engage in this in a legitimate discussion of how we take this on nationally in a systemic way. And I just urge you and others, hopefully we can find an opportunity to do that. And with that, I'll yield back.
Senator John.
It was a United States Senator, Andy Kim of New Jersey, a man who spent years tracking terrorist financing networks at the Pentagon, sitting in a hearing room, visibly furious, laying bare a truth that should keep every American awake tonight. Billions of your tax dollars are being siphoned by criminal networks operating across state lines, and the systems designed to stop them are, by the expert testimony we heard today, wholly inadequate. Haywood Talcove, the CEO of LexisNexis Risk Solutions, not a Democratic operative, not a progressive activist, but a private sector executive whose company works with law enforcement agencies across the country, told this committee that criminals are operating nationally. They don't respect state borders. They don't care about jurisdictional lines. They exploit the gaps between them. And yet, as Dylan Hetler-Gaudet from the Project on Government Oversight testified, the federal government's primary transparency tool, usaspending.gov, is so outdated, so poorly maintained, that its award descriptions are filled with what he called gobbledygook. 20 years after a bipartisan law co-authored by Barack Obama created that system, it still can't tell you where your money is actually going. While Senator Kim is in that hearing room calling for bipartisan action, calling for a unified national response, calling for investment in the very oversight tools that could catch these criminals, what has this administration been doing? It fired 17 inspectors general, 17, the nonpartisan watchdogs whose entire job is to prevent exactly this kind of fraud. House Republicans proposed slashing the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, which has saved taxpayers $1.45 trillion since 2002 by 50%. The president's own budget director has publicly stated that the GAO should not exist. We are losing billions to organized criminal fraud, and this administration's response has been to dismantle the institutions designed to fight it. That is not governance. That is not fiscal responsibility. And yet, and this is what makes Senator Kim's performance today so striking, he did not use this hearing to grandstand. He did not use it to score cheap political points. He extended an open hand across the aisle. He called for a comprehensive, bipartisan menu of actions. He asked what can be done with the administration, through Congress, and at the state level. That is the posture of a legislator who is serious about solving a problem, not exploiting one. Senator Kim said today that we live in the time of the greatest distrust in government in modern American history. He's right, and hearings like this one show us exactly why. not because government can